Welcome to Smart Wealth with Joshua.
Your daily stock analysis and catalyst talk. Today we're looking at Oklo.
If you find our talks useful, please consider subscribe, like, and comment underneath. And before we really get going, make sure to check out the VIP Algos link below in the description. It's a great tool for finding some really unique market setups.
Definitely worth a look.
So today we are unpacking a setup that, frankly, sounds like a complete financial contradiction.
Oh, it really does.
Right. I mean, imagine a company that currently loses roughly 83 cents, like negative 0.8325 EPS for every single share it issues. They do not have a commercial product to sell right now.
Nothing on the market.
Exactly. And their stock chart has just completely crashed. It's down over 75% from its all-time high.
Yeah, which usually sends investors running for the hills.
But here's the wild part. Wall Street is currently valuing this entirely pre-revenue enterprise at $8.23 billion.
It's a massive number for a company with no traditional revenue.
It's staggering. And not only that, but we're seeing this framed as a major wealth-building context kind of play, a long-term asymmetric opportunity. So we really need to figure out what Oklo actually possesses that justifies this.
Well, if you look at the fundamentals, it's all about what the market thinks their intellectual property is worth.
Right, because if you evaluate them on just normal, traditional metrics, you'd run away. I mean, they are trading at a 3.12 price-to-book ratio.
Which is high.
Yeah, for anyone who, doesn't spend all day staring at balance sheets. Price-to-book basically just compares a company's market value against the actual tangible physical assets it owns. Like if they sold off all the desks, computers, facilities, that's the book.
So the market is essentially saying Oklo is worth more than 3 times its physical footprint. You are paying a huge premium for the intangible value, the IP, the patents.
So what exactly is that intellectual property? Because it's clearly not just some cool new gadget. It seems to be sitting right at the intersection of AI, energy demands, advanced nuclear physics, and honestly, a pretty terrifying global geopolitical crisis.
That's exactly it. And I know when people hear nuclear, they immediately think back to the 70s and 80s, right? The massive cost overruns, the endless red tape, the safety fears.
No, totally, which is completely justified. I mean, traditional nuclear plants are like the 1960s mainframe computers of the energy world.
That's a great way to put it.
They are these massive, sprawling facilities. They take 15 years and $20 billion to build, and you basically have to design your whole regional power grid around them.
Right. And to understand Oklo's $8 billion valuation, you have to realize they are trying to completely upend that old mainframe model. The old model relies on light water reactor technology.
Meaning they just use regular water to keep the radioactive core cool?
Exactly. But there's a huge physics problem there. To keep that water from just instantly boiling away at those extreme nuclear temperatures, you have to keep it under immense, constant pressure.
Ah, okay, so you're basically building a giant industrial pressure cooker.
Precisely. And if you have a giant pressure cooker filled with radioactive material, well, you need a really, really strong lid in case anything goes wrong.
Right, those massive concrete containment domes.
Yeah. Thousands of tons of specialized steel, 10-foot thick, reinforced concrete. That engineering requirement alone is why legacy nuclear is so incredibly slow and expensive.
So enter Oklo. They have this thing they call the Aurora Powerhouse. And the numbers say it's designed to produce under 50 megawatts of electricity.
Which is tiny. I mean, compared to a gigawatt-scale legacy plant, it's very small.
But the size isn't even the main thing, is it? It's the coolant. They use liquid sodium instead of water.
Yeah, it's a sodium-cooled fast reactor. And liquid sodium fundamentally changes the math because it boils at a significantly higher temperature than water.
Meaning it can absorb all that insane heat from the core without turning into highly pressurized steam.
Exactly.
So you don't need the giant pressure cooker. It's almost like a slow cooker or a crock pot sitting on your kitchen counter. It gets really hot inside, but it just operates at normal room pressure.
That is the perfect analogy. And because there's no massive pressure trying to burst out, you don't need the giant steel vault. You don't need the massive concrete dome.
Which radically shrinks the construction costs and the timeline.
Yes. And it drastically improves the safety profile. The Aurora has something called passive decay heat removal.
Okay, what does that mean in plain English?
It means that if the plant loses all power, nobody has to rush in and manually start up backup diesel generators to pump water and cool the core.
Wait, really? It just cools itself?
Yeah, it relies entirely on natural thermal convection. Hot liquid naturally rises, and then as it hits the top and cools, it naturally sinks back down.
Forming a loop.
Right, a continuous natural circulation loop. Yeah. So if the grid fails and every single human leaves the building, physics just takes over and cools the core. No human intervention needed.
That's wild. Okay, so the safety profile is better, it's cheaper to build, but there is another fundamental piece here that blew my mind. This reactor can supposedly consume spent nuclear fuel from older conventional reactors.
It can.
How? I always thought nuclear waste was just this toxic stuff we had to bury deep inside a mountain in Nevada for like 10,000 years.
Well, this is why they call it a fast reactor. Legacy light water plants have to use moderators to actually slow down the neutrons to sustain a reaction.
Okay.
But when you slow them down, they don't break down all the heavy elements. They leave behind that highly radioactive, long-lived waste.
So Oklo's reactor just doesn't slow them down.
Right. The fast, highly energetic neutrons can actually split those heavy leftover elements. They essentially recycle the waste, turning a massive environmental problem into free fuel.
That is a massive IP moat. But, I mean, execution is a whole different ballgame. You're dealing with liquid sodium, fast neutrons, passive thermal dynamics. That requires some serious, specialized brains.
It does. And the management team seems very aware of that execution risk. Just a few days ago, on July 1st, 2026, Oklo acquired Colorado Engineering, or CEI.
Right, which brings a ton of that highly specialized sodium engineering talent in-house.
Vertically integrating that talent is a huge de-risking event. In advanced nuclear, your biggest hurdle usually isn't money, it's finding the right people. You can't just post a job on LinkedIn for a liquid sodium thermal engineer.
Yeah, I imagine that's a pretty short list of candidates.
Exactly. So now they own the whole stack. They aren't waiting on a contractor's timeline, which reduces deployment risks.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate here for a second, though.
Go for it.
Having great, safe technology is awesome. Having the engineers in-house is great. But we are still talking about the U.S. government. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the Department of Energy, they are not exactly known for moving at, Silicon Valley speeds.
Not at all.
So getting a totally new reactor design approved takes years. How does Oklo, as a company with zero revenue right now, survive that waiting game without going totally bankrupt or diluting their stock into oblivion?
That is the single most important question regarding this stock. And it brings us right into their catalysts. They have a dual-track commercialization strategy. They are not just waiting around for the Aurora powerhouse to get approved for the main energy grid.
Right. Looking at the data, they have this totally separate thing happening right now in Texas.
Aurora is navigating the long-term regulatory maze. Groves is their immediate, near-term commercial play.
It kind of reminds me of a rock band, right? Say you have a band that wants to spend 5 years in the studio making this massive experimental double album magnum opus.
Okay, I like this.
But the record label is furious because they need cash flow today or they're going to drop them. So the band just knocks out a quick, catchy, lucrative little EP to generate cash and buy themselves more studio time.
That's perfect. The Aurora powerhouse is the magnum opus. The Groves reactor is the EP.
So what is this EP actually doing? It's targeting the domestic, medical, and industrial isotope market.
Right. And for context, an isotope is basically just a variation of an element, often radioactive, and they're incredibly valuable.
Like for medical imaging, right? PT scans for cancer detection, radiation therapies.
Exactly. And industrially, they use them to test the structural integrity of, like, aircraft parts or pipelines without having to take them apart.
And right now, the U.S. relies heavily on foreign suppliers for those. So providing a domestic supply is huge, but the big catalyst here is what just happened on July 3rd, 2026.
Right. The Department of Energy officially approved the documented safety analysis, the DSA for the Groves reactor.
Which pushes it into the final pre-startup review phase. This is huge because it proves to the market that they aren't just a bunch of scientists in a lab. They can actually navigate the bureaucracy and get a real government stamp of approval.
And the management team has guided that Groves is on track to go live this month, July 2026.
Wait, this month?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, that flips the switch entirely. If they launch this month, they instantly graduate from a cash-burning R&D project to a revenue-generating nuclear operator. That first dollar fundamentally shifts the valuation model.
It absolutely does. But here's the thing. Generating power or isotopes only matters if you have eager buyers ready to pay for it.
Right.
Which brings us to the sentiment and the macro environment. Oklo is currently sitting in the middle of a perfect storm. Let's look at AI first.
Oh, yeah. Everyone has been obsessed with this software, the large language models, the AI chips, but The physical reality of AI is a massive power drain. Training and running these models requires a mind-blowing amount of electricity.
It's an energy demand curve we basically haven't seen since air conditioning became standard. These data centers need baseload power. It has to be 247, completely uninterrupted.
And wind and solar are too intermittent. You can't have your AI data center shut down because it's cloudy.
Exactly. And batteries just aren't there yet at that scale. So all the big tech companies are realizing that nuclear is basically the only carbon-free way to meet this 247 demand.
Which is where that small size, the sub 50 megawatt size of the Aurora, becomes a massive advantage. We talked about it being like a slow cooker. Because it's so small, they can do what's called behind-the-meter deployment.
Behind the meter is a total game changer. It means you aren't plugging into the sprawling national grid. You don't have to deal with regional transmission bottlenecks or wait 10 years for new power lines to be permitted.
You literally just drop this little powerhouse directly onto the tech company's data center campus.
Right there on site. Localized power.
That perfectly solves the tech sector's problem. But there's a second macro factor here, and it's much darker, but maybe even more urgent: the geopolitical situation.
Yeah, the conflict in the Middle East has completely escalated. The U.S.-Iran ceasefire is over.
The numbers are grim. The U.S. reportedly struck 90 Iranian targets, and Iran is retaliating against bases in places like Kuwait and Qatar.
And all of this kinetic action is happening right around the Strait of Hormuz.
Which is arguably the most vital economic choke point on Earth. Something like 20% of all traded oil and natural gas goes through that one narrow strip of water.
And because of the conflict, commercial traffic through the strait has absolutely plummeted. It went from an average of 34 large vessels a day down to just 2.
That is insane. 2 vessels. That's a functional blockade of a fifth of the world's fossil fuel supply.
It is.
And it creates this crazy paradox for Oklo. This geopolitical crisis is causing massive panic in the broader markets. I mean, Bank of America just lowered its S&P 500 target down to 7,100 because of all this chaos.
But for a domestic nuclear company, that chaos is the ultimate bill case.
Right, because it forces governments to wake up. When your entire energy grid runs on fossil fuels that can get trapped in a war zone halfway across the planet, you don't actually have energy security.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oklo goes from being just a cool green energy tech play to being a critical national security infrastructure play. Secure domestic baseload power is suddenly the highest priority on a federal level.
And the current administration's policy explicitly states they want to deploy small reactors to boost domestic nuclear energy.
So you have massive AI demand colliding with an urgent geopolitical energy crisis and a supportive federal policy.
Okay, so the tech solves the legacy, safety, and cost issues. They have an imminent catalyst with the Groves reactor going live this month to solve the revenue problem. AI needs the power, and the government wants domestic security.
Right.
So if all that is true, we really need to look at the technicals in the bear case. Because why does the stock chart look like a complete disaster?
It's a fair question. And you have to reconcile that long-term thesis with the current price action.
I mean, we're looking at a stock trading around $47.28. That is down 75.6% from its peak of roughly $193 back in October 2025.
The biggest weight on the stock right now is execution risk. Even with Grove starting up, they are still, today, pre-revenue. And when the macro environment gets jittery-like with the Strait of Hormuz, the broader market brutally punishes speculative growth stocks.
Right, because if Groves misses that July target, or if Aurora hits a snag with the NRC, they still have to pay all those new engineers from CEI. They're going to burn cash.
And when a pre-revenue company burns cash, they eventually have to issue more shares to raise capital.
Which dilutes everyone currently holding the stock. Your piece of the pie gets smaller.
Exactly. That dilution risk is definitely priced in here.
There's also another huge red flag I noticed: insider selling. Over the last 90 days, insiders net sold over 1.2 million shares. There were 20 buy transactions, sure, but 51 sells? If the actual engineers and founders are dumping their stock, shouldn't we be worried?
On the surface, yes. But context is everything here. Oklo went public via a SPAC merger.
A special purpose acquisition company, basically a backdoor way to go public faster than a traditional IPO.
Right. And with SPACs, early investors and founders are usually locked up. They legally cannot sell their shares for, say, 6 to 12 months after the merger.
I see.
So when those lockup periods finally expire, it is extremely normal to see a massive wave of insider selling.
So it's not necessarily a vote of no confidence in the tech. It's literally just early employees finally being able to cash out, maybe buy a house, or big funds just rebalancing their portfolios.
Precisely. And if we look at the technical analysis of the chart, there's strong evidence that this wave of selling is actually exhausting itself.
Exhausting itself. I mean, a 75% drawdown sounds pretty exhausted.
Well, look at the stabilization. Back in March, the stock hit a floor at $44.88. Today, it's in the $47 range. It tested that low and it didn't break.
It found hard support.
Right. And look at the momentum. The 26-week return is negative 34%. But the 13-week return, the most recent quarter, is only negative 3%. The bleeding is practically stopped.
And the trading volume is contracting too. It's at like 0.86 times its historical average. So fewer and fewer shares are trading hands down at these levels.
That is classic seller exhaustion. Anyone who wanted to panic sell because of the Middle East or take their post-back profits has likely already done it. There's no major volume spike of capitulation.
Technical analysts call that a rounded bottom accumulation pattern, right?
Yes, it implies that institutional buyers might be quietly accumulating shares at these discounted prices.
And doing that despite BOFA downgrading the market, despite the Hormuz crisis, which suggests that all those fears, the execution risk, the dilution, the insider selling, might already be fully priced into that $47 level.
Exactly. The risks are known and priced in. But the imminent catalysts like Groves generating revenue this month are arguably not fully priced in yet.
Which brings us to the final verdict. Based on everything, analysts are giving Oklo a 7 out of 10 bullish score.
But we have to be clear on the time frame. This is not a quick swing trade.
No, definitely not. They are viewing this as a 12 to 36-month multi-year horizon. You have to be patient. You wait for the Groves reactor to start up and bring in revenue, and you wait for those AI data center agreements to solidify for the Aurora powerhouse.
All while global demand for domestic secure power just keeps climbing.
It's a really fascinating intersection of physics and finance. And it leaves me with one final thought, actually.
Oh.
Yeah, we spend so much time obsessing over AI, right? We assume the ultimate winners are going to be the guys designing the smartest microchips or coding the best software.
Everyone wants the next big tech giant.
Right. But what if the true bottleneck to the future of technology isn't computing power at all? What if the actual bottleneck is literal power, the raw electricity needed to run all of this?
That's a great point.
And if that's true, could a compact nuclear company, one that's currently pre-revenue and sitting at the bottom of a 75% crash, end up being the single most vital tech investment of the decade?
It's a provocative thought. And we might start getting the answer when that little test reactor spins up in Texas this month.
We will absolutely be keeping a close eye on it. As always, if you find our talks useful, please consider subscribe, like, and comment underneath. And don't forget to check out the VIP Algos link below in the description to find more setups like this. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.